An award-winning handbag designer and accidental entrepreneur, Femi Olayebi is the Chief Creative Director of My World of Bags, a handbag design and manufacturing company producing leather handbag and accessory line, Femi Handbags. In 2008, she became a Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women Scholar and was twice nominated to attend programs where she job shadowed some of the world's most famous handbag designers. She was selected by the Nigerian Bank of Industry to attend the Brazil-Nigeria Business Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 2013, and in that same year became a case study for MBA students at the Pan Atlantic University, Lagos. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Biola.
Such a pleasure to have you on.
My pleasure. Same here.
So I'm going to go straight right into it. Leather handbags. Number one, when you think of leather handbags, you don't think of Nigeria. Talk less of a leather handbag designer. So tell me, how did this journey start for you?
It started many, many years ago, and it actually did not start with leather handbags. In 1992, I made a baby bag for my daughter. And I made that because I guess I have creative streaks inside of me. And I couldn't find a baby bag for her that I liked. And I thought to just go and
make one.
Make one myself.
Yeah, that's what you do. You can't find a bag, you make one.
Yeah, so I did just that.
But you sewed, like you knew how to sew.
I just
and
learned
stuff.
how to use a sewing machine,
Okay,
because I like to do things with my hands.
Okay.
And so I thought, hey, Femi, you can cut and sew a piece of cloth and make it into a bag. And that's exactly how that happened. But it happened not because I planned to become a leather designer. I just wanted to make a baby bag. And that's really where the story begins. So I started making baby bags for friends and getting orders. And then I decided, you know what, it can't all be about baby bags. So I decided to go on to different kinds of bags. And really, that's it.
And so when you first started doing bags, you were working more with
So I worked a lot with materials like denim, chinos. I even used the cinnamon material that you use for hats in those days. I used everything that I could lay my hands on. I was just having a lot of fun making handbags. And it started spiraling into something else. So I attended exhibitions and people started to take notice. But I think that what really drew attention was the fact that they were very well made. Whatever the material was, it was well made. And I finally took part in a show in London in 2010, which was called Pure London. It's the biggest accessories show in London, and I was advised at the time. Luckily, I got a good advice from Durolo, who's the British-born designer based in London. And he said to me, Femi, you can't use anything but leather. And I thought, I've never used leather. And he said, no, but that's what you're going to use. So I taught my workers, the machinists, how to use leather, because using leather was a totally different, sewing on leather was a totally different ball game from sewing on chinos or denim. Or, so we started learning how to use the machine to sew leather. So it was, again, a lot of experimentation. But it worked, and that's how I started making leather handbags.
When I think of leather, first of all, I'm always thinking like, okay, there's a cow, there's an animal, and then that animal, it goes from being an animal to being a handbag.
Yeah.
How were you, I mean, was it intimidating thinking about that? And then my second question was, were you able to use the same machines?
Initially, yes, okay. And it's a good thing that you do realize that it goes from a cow. I don't think a lot of people realize that what they have on their feet or what they're carrying every day is, the finished product, which started from a cow or a goat. Or, But yes, we started making the handbags. We started using leather, using the same machines. What we did initially was just change the needles, because at the time we could not afford the industrial machines. So we changed the needles to industrial needles and still use the smaller, Singer machines, those black machines that everybody uses with the pedal.
Sure.
Yeah. So really, we've come a long way from there. And then when we could afford to buy industrial machines, we started to use industrial machines.
Did you have any customer pushback? Because remember, people had been coming to you for these bags. You're transitioned into doing other bags, and now you were going to transition into leather, which I'm sure meant a little bit of a price difference. Did you get any pushback from your customers?
I don't think so, because really, I am grateful for the day that I started to use leather, because there's a huge difference between a leather bag and a bag that's made from denim, you know, and I had in mind a specific target audience that I wanted to reach, and I knew that they would not buy a denim bag from me, you know, this target audience. I knew that the only way I could capture that market was by using really good leather and by ensuring that my stitches were really good, ensuring that the bags were really well made, you know. So we, again, like I said, we just experimented a lot. We ensured I was not going to settle for anything less than very good quality. And so we managed to get there slowly but surely.
So what, I mean, as people at home can see the bags that we're showing on the screen, I mean, what's really amazing about these bags is the workmanship and also sort of the I don't want to say attention to detail, but there's also a feel that this could be from anywhere. So it has a touch of African, but it can be anywhere. So it's almost like you can go into any store and buy this. Why was that important to you to sort of make sure that even in the cut, in the look, that it could sit side by side in anyone's closet with sort of other typical things you think of when you're thinking of the best leather bag?
I think it's a mentality thing. I think it's just, maybe it's the way I was brought up. I was brought up by parents who taught us excellence, you know, who ensured that everything we did absolutely well, who dotted their I's, who crossed their T's. You know, so I'm coming from that kind of background. So I think there was this excellent spirit that was embedded in me from day one. So everything I did had to be well done. So whether I'm making a bag or whether I'm organizing an event, it simply had to be well done. So I think it's something that's must be. If it's not inside of you, build it inside of you. It's, you know, that's the only way, you know, to strive for excellence. And I always did want my product to be able to sit beside a Prada or Burberry or Gucci, and you would not be able to tell the difference. So I've always fought for that. It's just been a constant, it's a conscious effort I've always made to just make sure my stitches are straight, the bags are well made. So whether, in spite of the attention to detail, it's also the fact that you pick up the bag, not just on the outside, you look on the inside, and it's just as good as the outside. And so that has been...
So when you mention names like Prada, like Gucci, so when people are thinking of a leather bag, or they're sort of thinking, okay, I have these bags in my wardrobe, and you add Femi Handbags to that, what were some of the things that you've done from a marketing and branding perspective to make sure that your company has earned its place in the sort of in that side by side in the closet? Because it's really important. Like, you're taking up closet space at some point.
Yes.
So how do you get yourself into the closet? How do you first of all get on the shelf and into the closet from a marketing and branding perspective?
For me, it's being able to, like I said earlier, being able to benchmark yourself against these brands. You know, knowing exactly what you want, knowing exactly where you want to get to and where you want to be at. So it's not just a matter of conceptualizing products. It's not just about producing it. It's about where you want it to get to. You know, and for me, from day one, I really wanted to be placed beside the big brand names. You know, so I wanted to work like them. And so the opportunity to go to the States and job shadow the American designers was amazing, because I walked into their factories, I saw how they worked, I went into their offices, I saw how they operated, I discovered how they order their leathers. You know, it's just such a huge process. Here we do everything ourselves. Over there, there's a
It's someone
separation of
else's job.
duties.
Everyone
It's
has
somebody
a
else's
job.
job. You know, everybody has their job, but no, Femi. At the beginning, Femi was everything. You know, I conceptualized, I designed, we made the patterns. You know, so we did everything really. You know, and but it's important to learn that this is where you want to be. So I benchmark myself, and I look at what they do. I read a lot about them. I read their stories. And I find that, okay, to be able to succeed, there's certain steps that you need to take. You know, you can't rush these things. It's a process. You know, so don't think success doesn't happen overnight. It's taken me many, many, many years. And you don't always understand right at the beginning. There are many things you don't understand. So you must constantly learn. You must constantly seek knowledge, you know, in order to get to where they have gotten. They don't have two heads.
Of course, of course, of course.
So I don't see why we can't do what they're doing. And we can, and we will. I'm confident.
So now you're into the value chain. I mean, you sort of transitioned from sort of just thinking more about your brand to the global world of leather and how that then contributes to your brand. When you were job shadowing, what were some of the most interesting things you found out about leather sourcing? Like there sort of was like a light bulb moment for you. Like you're here. Can you mention the people you were shadowing?
Yeah, I job shadowed Marc Jacobs.
Okay.
I went into their offices, and there was also Lauren Merkin. She doesn't produce anymore, but she was producing this pretty little clutches at the time. Yeah. So those were some of the designers.
So what was it when you sort of were looking at the sourcing of leather? What were some of the light bulb moments, or what were some of the things that surprised you the most about how international designers work with leather?
It's just the structure that seems to be right there. You know, it's at their fingertips. They have the tanneries that supply to warehouses. And so all they need to do out there is to make those calls to their suppliers. And then they just bring in loads and loads and loads of square feet of leather, you know, to place them on the table. And I'm like, where's all this leather coming from? So I did visit some of the leather stores, and I was amazed. Floors and floors and floors of different types of leather. I mean, there were 100 shades of red. There were different types of ostrich. There was lizard. There was everything at their fingertips. And all this has been tanned and supplied to the warehouses. And that was such a major difference, because I knew that out here, there was nothing like that. We have warehouses out here, true. But what then happens is the warehouse owners brings in the leathers from older seasons, and they bring them in pieces. And one of those, so that's really one of the things that I found interesting. That struck me.
The accessibility of leather at their fingertips.
At their fingertips. The accessibility of accessories, the hardware they use, everything was there. And then, of course, a lot of things were done digitally. That also struck me. You know that, oh, you know what, you don't have to, you can go from designing on paper to actually designing digitally.
So more like 3D type of designs.
Yeah, so you can start using Adobe Illustrator,
yes,
you know. So those were the things I brought back. And I thought, you know what, I want to be just like them. And we're working hard towards that. So we also design, we use Adobe Illustrator to design our handbags. You know, so I just really wanted to learn from them. So we've been able to sort out the digital part, but the leather part, not quite. Not quite.
So that brings us to the Lagos Leather Fair. When you think of your value chain and how you source your leather, so here they go to these huge warehouses. They can get like 10 different shades of red. They decide next year, everything I'm doing is red. So what is your process like? How do you get your leather? Like, how does leather come to you?
Okay, we go, most leather designers that I know, that I've been able to interact with, go to Mushi Market.
Okay, that's what I've heard.
Yeah,
I've heard about
to source their leather.
Market, yes.
I know that if you get the leathers from Kano and Sokoto, but it's not the same quality. And I know that one of the things that, in terms of challenges, I remember a couple of years ago, I had an order to make key rings and we had to stamp the logo on it. Now, the logo of this company was purple, and I needed to find purple leather. Now, I said key rings. I didn't say handbags, key rings. So these are little things, and we needed to make 1,000. And I could not find enough leather to make 1,000 teeny-weeny key rings. And so I could manage that because I shipped some in from the UK.
Wow.
I went to the market and got all the purple leather available. I tried Kano, but it was not well dyed, so we couldn't use that. And I wasn't going to compromise. So at the end of the day, I had to ship in leather, which wasn't a lot of leather, really.
Yes.
You know, so in terms of accessing leather, that seems to be a problem. So if I got an order to make 50 handbags of the exact same thing, there's no way I'm going to get that leather here unless I ordered specially, and I don't even know if the tanneries will listen to me because they're dealing with companies that are old.
With bigger companies.
With bigger
So one of the
companies.
biggest challenges we have in Nigeria from a value chain perspective is very similar to also what we have in the oil sector, which is basically there's crude oil that gets shipped out, and at the same time we have full scarcity. So it's almost the same thing with leather. So there's leather being produced in Nigeria. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's leather being produced, it gets shipped out, and then we get the leather back. And then we could have leather scarcity, just like you have leather scarcity with yours.
Absolutely,
Okay.
that's what it is.
Why is that a problem? Why is it that all our leather has to be shipped out before we get it back?
I don't know that we always get it back.
Some of it back.
Yes. You're probably wearing something that came from Kano.
I hope we
headed out to Italy and then came right back to you. Okay, no, I think that what it is for the tanneries is, we used to have a lot of tanneries. Nigeria used to have over 30 tanneries. But I think with the decline, with oil, everything just sort of started shutting down. And now we don't have as many tanneries. And it's even though tanneries are big business, it's a very expensive venture. So not a lot of institutions can afford to run a tannery. It's a massive, massive process. And so there are probably just 3 or 4 huge ones who are tanning leathers, but can only sell to foreign companies because those are
that's what the markup is.
Yeah, that's where the markup is, and those are the ones that really have the financial clout to buy 300 square feet, 500 square feet, whereas quirky little Femi Handbags is looking for 20 square feet. What business do they have with me? You know, so that's why we're trying to change the narrative. You know, we're trying to shout from the rooftops and say, you know what, there are a lot of leather designers out there that need these leathers. We need to meet midway somehow, and so in order that we can also access this so-called exquisite leather that is going out.
Is this problem similar? Sorry, I want to ask you a question. Is this problem similar in countries like Argentina and Brazil, where they're also big leather producers? Do they have this type of similar issues with the country market, where most of the leather goes outside of the country?
Well, I don't know. I guess that a lot of those countries export anyway.
Yes.
You know, so
they consume
they're the big, exactly. So they have more than enough. Brazil and Argentina, they're the biggest producers of leather in the world. You know, so they have more than enough for the local consumer and for export. So it's a different
challenge there. Like it's sort of like they're like come take leather. I mean, you know.
we've got lots.
I find that you're walking in the market and everyone wants to make a leather jacket for you.
That's right.
In these places.
That's right.
So the Lagos Leather Fair, how will it address this problem? How is it providing a voice for people? And also, how are you able to connect with other leather designers so that you guys can join your voices?
Well, basically, what we did was.
Which, by the way, our sister magazine is featuring you this weekend. This Day Style is featuring the Lagos Leather Fair on the front page. So people should pick it up to also learn more about how to get tickets and make sure they come to the Lagos Leather Fair, which is from the 4th to the 6th of May. So I hope people join you there. But tell us what people can expect when they come.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, we decided that it was time to create a platform for leather designers. There seemed to be a lot happening in the fashion space. Of course, shoes and bags are also fashion. They come under the category of fashion. But we felt that there was so much going on in the leather space, and there was not, they just didn't have a voice. They didn't have one single platform where we could all come together, you know, and start a conversation. And I felt that it was time to start a conversation. It was time to change the narrative. It was time that people stopped looking at us and thinking, you know what, oh, that bag is made in Nigeria, or that shoe is made in Nigeria. It simply can't be well made. But you know what, we need to prove to them that it can be well made, and it is well made. And like I said, it's time that we started telling our own stories. You know,
I think also one of the things we get carried away with when it comes to made in Nigeria is the fact that we also need to share the history of other places that today are global players. So if you look at places like Korea, where Samsung, LG, and companies like they would come from. For a long time, they were buying, and even Japan, where Toyota, the first line of Toyota cars were not the Toyotas that you're driving today. So we have to understand that these things have to start somewhere.
Exactly.
And I think that's also part of the narrative we have to change.
I must also add that another thing that propelled me was just reading the Ethiopia story. And I was astounded that this is another African country which has succeeded in exporting its leather products to places like Germany, Japan. And you know, a lot of foreign investors have come into Ethiopia. And that's what we also need here. We need foreign investors to take us seriously. We need investment, because it's big business. We need investment. We need people to come in and say, you know what, there's a lot of leather here. Let's do something with it. Ethiopia has been able to do that. Their export earnings almost doubled in the past 10 years, you know, and I think Nigeria is probably the third biggest livestock producer in Africa. So if Ethiopia has been able to do it, why not Nigeria, the giant of Africa? What are we doing wrong? You know, so I feel that there's a lot of things that we can correct, and it starts with one step. And I think that one step is the Lagos Leather Fair.
And at Lagos Leather Fair, like it says, there's shopping, there's exhibitions, there are master classes. Tell me more about the master classes. What can people learn? Okay,
yeah, people can learn a whole lot. So what we did was look at the value chain and look at what people needed to learn and needed to know. So we have, we're going to start with a lady called Akosua. She's based in Ghana, and we're inviting her to come and tell us how she has succeeded in the creative space. She owns a brand called AAKS Axe, and she's now stores her goods in over 60 countries globally. How has she been able to do it? We're inviting her to come and tell us. We're also going to have Bill Amberg from the UK. He's one of the leading leather designers in the UK, and he's done amazing things with leather. He does leather wardrobes, leather floors, leather everything. So again, we're inviting him to open the minds of designers. It doesn't have to be about shoes and bags, you know. He creates walls, he creates everything. He creates banisters from leather, you know. So basically, we're bringing him into his masterclass is called The Magic of Leather, you know, exploring the mega possibilities within the leather space. And then we're also going to talk about branding. We're having Adibola Williams come and talk about branding, how to create brand influence in a very competitive world. We also have a retail session where we're going to have a very well-known retailer, Exclamations, Ayotomi Rotimi, who's going to moderate a session, which is called From Factory to Consumer and everything in between. Because there's so much from the production, from the conceptualizing stages to the production stage, to the retail, to branding, to marketing, to distribution. We need to start thinking of the psychology of the consumer. Why would you buy Femi Handbags over a Mata Igele? You know, those are the things that people need to start thinking about, you know, and taking into consideration when they're producing or when they're marketing, you know. And then we've got another master class where we're going to have an Italian lady. She's coming in from Verona, and she's going to talk about the art of shoemaking. Now, this is important for me because I think a lot of people take it for granted that, oh, you know, I can just make a pair of slippers in under 2 hours. But I discovered when I went to Italy that the handbag making course is takes a third of the time to finish, whereas the shoemaking course takes so much longer. And I started asking questions. Why would it take so much longer to learn how to make a shoe than to make a bag? And then I started understanding the concept of making shoes, which a lot of designers here don't think about. I think for them it's just about getting a last, putting it together, putting the sole together, you know, putting the straps on top, and then my shoe is all done. It's so much more than that, you know. There's, you know, you have to think of the body shapes. You have to think of balance. You have to think of shoe size, foot sizes. You have to think of your heel.
Yes.
You know, so I've read so much about shoes, and I realized, oh my God, there's so much that goes into thinking about making a shoe. So don't just slap it all together. There are things that you need to think about in terms of design, in terms of the product design itself. So that for us is very important. We hope that it's not just for the shoemakers, also for handbag designers. So there's all those masterclasses going on, and we're very excited to have.
Sounds like it's going to be a very busy couple of days at the Lagos Leather Fair.
And we have, for the first event, the very first one, we're going to have Omoyemi Akirele, who's going to sit in conversation with her. We have Tokyo James, who's also going to be there with a coast tour, and of course we have a buyer of orange culture that will also be there on Friday evening. So we're all very excited.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to bring in some more people and continue our conversation. Thank you. We're heading for a quick break. When we return, I'll be joined by a panel to discuss more on the Nigerian leather industry. Please stay tuned.